Hare Krishna Giriraj Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
So I want to thank you so much for spending time with us. Particularly, you're the first devotee that we approached to begin a series on Srila Prabhupada, the preeminent Siksha Guru of ISKCON. And one of the reasons, of the many reasons that we asked you to begin this series is because of, you are very well known, but then particularly in my heart, you have such strong fidelity to Srila Prabhupada, and can lead us in one sense. Also, you're actually one of my Siksha gurus. I've approached you at different points in time. So we're approaching you to illuminate this topic, that Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Siksha Guru. I also wanted the audience to know that we spoke a little bit on the phone in terms of what we would be covering prior to this interview. And one of the things we mentioned was that we have some awareness that many of our grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada actually aren't reading Srila Prabhupada's books as much as they could, should, and would. And I'm hoping that that would also be part of our interview today. You had sent me a number of quotes from Srila Prabhupada, and one of them was this morning walk that Srila Prabhupada had in Perth. Maybe you could tell us, start off by telling us that.
Yes. Srila Prabhupada as the preeminent Siksha Guru has to be seen in relation to other acharyas. And in this morning walk, Srila Prabhupada states that we should read the books of the previous acharyas, but that we should read the books first and assimilate what he has given us, and then read the previous acharyas. And I'll read this exchange. Amoga says, Srila Prabhupada, I remember once I heard a tape where you told us that we should not try to read the books of the previous acharyas, that we should not try to read Bhaktivedanta books or earlier books of other acharyas. Prabhupada, I never said that. Amoga, you didn't say that? I thought you said that we should not read the previous acharya's books. Prabhupada, no, you should read. It is misunderstanding. Paramahamsa, I think maybe he was thinking that there was some things about some of the Gaudiya Math books. Prabhupada, maybe. And sometimes you said that better to read your books. And then Amoga says, maybe the reason was that the devotees were going to the Gaudiya Math to get the books. Anyway, Prabhupada said, who said that is wrong? We are following previous acharyas. I never said that. Paramahamsa, all of your commentaries are coming from the previous acharyas. Prabhupada, yes. Jayadharma, but that wouldn't mean that we should keep all the previous acharyas' books and only read them. Prabhupada, that is already there. You first of all assimilate what you have got. In other words, you first of all assimilate what Prabhupada has given us. You simply pile up books and do not read. What is the use? Paramahamsa, practically speaking, Srila Prabhupada, you are giving the essence of all the previous acharyas in your books. Prabhupada, yes. So the purport is that first and foremost, we should read Srila Prabhupada's books, but that we can also read the writings of the previous acharyas and see them in the light of what Srila Prabhupada has given us as our preeminent Siksha Guru.
So, of course, this implies that we have to read Srila Prabhupada's books very carefully and make it a lifelong practice.
Yes. Yes, I remember so many letters in which Srila Prabhupada said we should read at least an hour a day, his books. And that brings me to another point. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada says that if we don't read his books, basically we'll just eat and sleep and fall down. I'll read that quotation because it's very powerful. So the verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is Madhya 25-278, says, men become strong and stout by eating sufficient grains, but the devotees who simply eat ordinary grains but do not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna gradually become weak and fall down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks but a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom, and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance, which is very nice. And in his purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, all the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated. All the books that have been translated. Parentheses. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure. So we don't want to miss that opportunity. And we want to remain enthusiastic and convinced. Fall down from their position doesn't mean necessarily to fall down in the grossest sense, but it could mean very well to become weak in one's convictions and to lose enthusiasm to practice and preach Krishna consciousness.
When we look at this idea of spending time on a daily basis to read Srila Prabhupada's books, that sounds like the instruction is the equivalent of every single day we have to spend time to chant 16 rounds. Are we looking at this as almost an equivalent of the two?
They're somewhat comparable. Of course, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada writes that of all the instructions of the spiritual master, the instruction to chant a minimum of 16 rounds is most essential. So it's true that when we have a lot of service, we may reduce the reading, but we can't miss the chanting of 16 rounds. But under ordinary circumstances, which are most usual, we should also read. It's very important to have that association with Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas.
And then maybe you could expand on this point, that reading Srila Prabhupada's books is, in fact, having direct association with Srila Prabhupada.
Yes. Um, Srila Prabhupada said his purports are his personal ecstasies. And not only are we associating with Srila Prabhupada, but we're associating with him in his most ecstatic mood. Yeah, because on the absolute platform, well, we know that there are two ways of associating. One is Vani, which means words or transcendental sound, and the other is Vapu, which means a body or physical presence. And Srila Prabhupada often said, and it's the fact, that Vapu may or may not be present, but Vani is always available, and it continues to exist eternally. So, by definition, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we're associating with his Vani, which means we're associating with him.
So it just maybe because some of us are still kind of thinking and feeling and existing on the mundane plane. If we had this figuratively speaking, Srila Prabhupada arrived and said, "Hey, anybody want to spend any time with me?" We would flock. Okay. But then do we have that same realization that, just behind you or behind me are his books? We should flock. What does it take to get to this point where we could understand that we should be flocking toward his books in the same way that he said, "Hey, I just came back here for a little while. Anybody want to spend any time with me?" How do we get to that level?
Yeah, we should take Srila Prabhupada's books as personal instructions for us. Our god brother, His Grace Burijan Prabhu, wrote a nice essay about prayerful reading. And the idea of the prayerful reading is that as we read, we should be praying for Srila Prabhupada to give us the instructions that we need. And so many devotees, I'm sure you're one of them, I'm one of them, so many devotees have said that at some moment of crisis or doubt or confusion, they opened Srila Prabhupada's books and the answer jumped right out at them. So Srila Prabhupada's books are alive.
Sometimes it seems that the brain, our awareness, our consciousness everything is always coming at us. There's nothing that ever stops. There's nothing empty, right? It's always being filled with something.
Yeah.
And the affairs of our daily work in Krishna consciousness, or some of us have business or something, brain's always being filled up. But is the brain being filled up sufficiently from Srila Prabhupada's words? Because at a certain point, we're called upon to be making decisions on our personal life, decisions on the projects that we're working on. How do we make sure that whatever we're deciding to do is imbued by Srila Prabhupada's instructions? How does that happen?
Well, I always pray to Srila Prabhupada to guide me. Yeah, we should always be very humble. Srila Prabhupada used the phrase frequently, careful and cautious. Be very circumspect in what we do, be very introspective. what would Srila Prabhupada want me to do, and pray for that guidance? Because we are fully dependent on Srila Prabhupada's mercy in every respect. And yeah, we want his guidance. We had a very good friend in Bombay named Dr. N.D. Desai, who was later initiated as Srinathji Das. And he was a major industrialist. And, sometimes I would visit his home early in the morning, and I would see him like 7 o'clock sitting. He had this beautiful furniture covered with silk, but he would be sitting cross-legged and very attentively chanting. And his father, Mr. D.D. Desai, was a very shrewd businessman and a member of parliament. And after he passed away, the talk, because I was, in those circles, the talk amongst the business community was that they didn't know how the son was going to manage the industries. And he made the industries grow. I mean, he started new ones. And he said that his early morning japa and sadhana gave him a lot of inspiration about how to conduct his businesses. So, I mean, I'm not saying that should be our motive, but it's a byproduct. It helps in all spheres of life.
Sometimes I find, even myself, but then I'm aware of other devotees that it's almost like it's difficult to sit and read for any length of time. Why is that? Is it just the fickleness of the mind? Is it some lack of attraction? What is affecting us in such a way that we don't spend more time reading?
Yeah, well, I've heard that in this age of the internet, people's attention spans are shorter, but that's really not an excuse. I think we need to sit down and be peaceful and have that quality time with Srila Prabhupada through his books, and understand that he's speaking to us through his books, and be alert. What is he saying to me that's relevant to my life that I can apply? And then the other thing that you mentioned is also there about taste. We may lack taste, which calls to mind Rupa Goswami's verse in the Upadeshamrita, Syat Krishna Charitadi Sutapta Pitta, that one who is afflicted by the disease of jaundice can't taste sweet things as being sweet. But the Ayurvedic cure for jaundice is sugar candy. And even though it tastes bitter, one takes it as a medicine. And as one takes the medicine and gradually returns to health, he tastes that sugar candy, which is sweet, but tasted bitter because of his jaundice condition. That jaundice is avidya, which means ignorance. He gradually tastes it as sweeter and sweeter. And then when he's cured, he can taste it as it is, sweet like nectar. So it's even if we think it's a bitter medicine, which it's not really, but if we should still take it. My advice.
You started earlier speaking about, yes, it's fine to read Acharya's previous Acharya books, but we should be reading Srila Prabhupada's books first. I have a certain awareness that many of Srila Prabhupada's grand disciples, they're reading their own spiritual masters' books first and putting other books, including Srila Prabhupada's books, almost in a secondary category. I'm pretty sure that there are some devotees that feel that way. Is that like a misunderstanding, or maybe something that's not quite right?
It sounds like it. I know His Holiness Devamrita Swami, who's written some excellent books. He tells his disciples that they must read Srila Prabhupada's books, maybe an hour a day, because he puts Srila Prabhupada's books in a different category. And even in my books, I hope that, and of course I quote a lot from Srila Prabhupada, I hope that reading my books will inspire the readers to turn to Srila Prabhupada's books. I consider mine to be sort of supplementary to the main books, which are Srila Prabhupada's. So, yeah, I really appreciated hearing from Devamrita Swami that he puts Srila Prabhupada's books in their own category and emphasizes that his disciples must read them.
Do you have any sense of, on a long-term basis, let's say over years, two paths, regularly reading Srila Prabhupada's books on a really regular basis, as almost like a sadhana, a daily basis, and not really reading Srila Prabhupada's books so much? Let's roll down 10, 15, 20 years. What's the difference between these two in terms of where we will be in our devotional progress?
Well, the phrase that comes to us is like a ship without a captain.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada, and there is that verse in the Bhagavatam. We think we met your goodness by the grace of providence to be the captain of our ship that can go over the dangerous ocean of Kali. So that verse refers to Srimad Bhagavatam. But we get Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Prabhupada. And so that verse equally applies to Srila Prabhupada. And if we want to have a captain on our ship to lead us across the dangerous ocean of Kali, we need to read these books. Otherwise, we're going to adrift in the ocean with no real direction.
One of the quotes you sent me, Maharaj, it started with the Sri Vishnu Duta Uvacha.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk to us about that, even read it for us.
Yeah. This is a very, very significant. In this talk, I'll read the translation of the verse first. The blessed messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, said, if you are actually servants of Yamaraj, you must explain to us the meaning of religious principles and the symptoms of irreligion. That's Bhagavatam 6.1.3. This concerns the Ajamil on his deathbed. Ajamil had become very sinful, so the Yamadutas, the messengers of Yamaraj, came to take him to be punished. But at the last moment, he called the name of his son, Narayan, to whom he was very attached. And because he chanted the holy name of Narayan, the Vishnu Dutas came. So they challenged the Yamadutas, and to explain. And Srila Prabhupada relates this to us, and I'll read it. It's very instructive. So, the blessed messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, said, if you are actually servants of Yamaraj, you must explain to us the meaning of religious principles and the symptoms of irreligion. The Yamadutas had challenged, who are you interfering in our business? We have come to arrest him. This is Prabhupada speaking. So the counter challenge was, you said, we are servants of Dharmaraj. It is his jurisdiction. This person is impious. So this is the jurisdiction of Dharmaraj. He has to try the case and give him punishment. Criminal department, law and order. So you cannot interfere with us. Therefore, Prabhupada says, the challenge was replied by the Vishnu Dutas. If you are actually representatives of Dharmaraj, who tries the cases of Dharma and Adharma, first of all, explain what is Dharma and what is Adharma. And Srila Prabhupada continues, this is a very nice challenge. Suppose if you say, we are Krishna conscious persons, one may challenge you. First of all, explain what you know about Krishna. That is quite natural. If you do not know about Krishna, you have no right to say that I belong to the Krishna consciousness movement. You have no right to say. So your position is like that. Simply if you have tilak and kanti, neck beads, that does not mean that you belong to the Krishna consciousness movement. Any cheater can do that. You must know the philosophy. If one challenges, you must reply. Therefore, Bhaktivedanta Thakur has sung a song indicating these cheaters. He says, Ayota eka kalira chela. Here is a disciple of Kali. What kind of chela, disciple? Nake tilak galaya mala. He has got tilak and galaya mala, neck beads, bus. That's all. He does not know what is the philosophy. If you do not know the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, if you simply mark your body with tilak and kanti, then you are not a proper servant. You are not qualified. So tilak and mala is necessary, just like a policeman. A bogus man, if he dresses like a policeman, he's not a policeman. He must know what is the police law, criminal law, who is to be punished, who is not to be punished, what is criminality, what is innocence. All these things he must know. So as members of the Krishna consciousness movement, we have to know Krishna, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. That can be achieved by reading Srila Prabhupada's books and, hearing his lectures, but first and foremost, reading his books. Then we can be proper members of the Krishna consciousness movement.
Wonderful. But is there something to be said for reading in the association of devotees, and maybe even best to seek out devotees that we feel are more advanced than us? How does the association element enter into reading Srila Prabhupada's books?
Yes. It's Satam Prasanga Mama Virya Sami. The topics are relished in the association of devotees. On occasion, when God brothers have come to stay with me at my ashram, we have, taken out Srila Prabhupada's books and discussed, interesting portions, or maybe even challenging portions. Challenging means hard for us to understand fully. And in that association, discussing Srila Prabhupada's books, the meanings come out more. So yeah, I highly recommend that. I heard that there was a Vaishnavi retreat in which the ladies were discussing Srila Prabhupada's books together and really unpacking more and more meanings from them. And I don't recall all the exercise, but I'm sure one was, what is Srila Prabhupada saying to me? What can I take from Srila Prabhupada's words that will, improve my life? And that's a very good point. Very good.
I know of, I'm sure you know Kaishori of the BBT.
Yes.
I know for a fact that she conducts weekly readings where she has as many as 25 or 30 devotees on a conference call, and all they do is read. And then have some occasional discussions about it, but it's just like reading time, and it just helps to, okay, this is a time where we're all going to read together, and they just take turns reading. And it would seem like we should do more of that kind of thing. Utilize the technology that we have to spend time together. What do you think of that?
Yeah. His Holiness Keshava Bharati Das Goswami has been doing, regular readings for extended periods. He would be in Houston, and I would also be in Houston. And the readings would be broadcast on the internet, but the room would fill up with people just to hear him read. No comments as such. Just to read out loud. And yeah, he had a large viewership on the internet. And he's a strong advocate of reading Srila Prabhupada's books out loud. And yeah, I found it very, very exhilarating.
I'd like to just come off of our discussion for a moment, just because you mentioned Keshava Bharati, and then earlier you mentioned Burijan, and then you also mentioned Devamrita. This series we started with you, and then we have a commitment from Indradumna Swami on our next Ekadasi to interview him. And we've yet to set up any more. And I want to do, between 8 and 10 of these sessions going forward. I want to have a few, 3 or 4 grand disciples speak about how their life is imbued and better because they are active readers of Srila Prabhupada's books. Then also I want to hear, first from our leaders. So who would you recommend that I approach to continue this illumination of Srila Prabhupada as the preeminent Siksha Guru? We have Keshava Bharati, Burijan, Devamrita. Who else would you recommend?
Well, yeah, so many of our God brothers have deep realizations about reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And some of them give such priority to it that they read early in the morning, Brahma Muhurta, to get, the best benefit. I mean, there are many. One name that comes to mind is Ravindra Swarup Prabhu.
Okay.
And another one, I believe, is one of those that gets up early to read is His Holiness Sachinandan Swami.
Who?
His Sachinandan Swami.
Sachinandan Swami. Okay, good.
Satsvarupa Das Goswami.
Oh, okay.
There's so many good choices.
Oh my God, I haven't talked to him for 30 years, 40 years. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah.
Okay. He was once my GBC.
Nice.
In fact, he sent me to Dallas at one point. Okay. Those are some good suggestions. Thank you. I'll contact these devotees. We want to do this every Ekadasi. We're probably going to shift. Today we're doing an Ekadasi for the U.S. Based on the U.S. date, but in further, and we'll do that with Indradumna, but then after that, we're going to just choose the Ekadasi time of Mayapur, since it's our headquarters, and
Yeah.
we'll be changing on that. You sent me one other document as part of this. It started out with, in difficult times like this. Maybe you could speak to that and even read some portions of this email.
Yeah. I mean, we are in difficult times. And I mean, within the difficult times, there have been more difficult times. And, you know, naturally, I feel like an urge to do something, you know, to help people, to help the world. And at that time, I feel the urgent need for Srila Prabhupada's books to be distributed and read in large numbers.
Mm.
For only such literature can enlighten people how to proceed in the right way. And I think of Srila Prabhupada's preface to Srimad Bhagavatam as being profoundly relevant, and I quote from it. And you'll see how it perfectly addresses the need of human society. Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, "We must know the present need of human society. And what is that need? Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. And the world tendency is toward one state or one human society. The ideals of Srimad Bhagavatam are based more or less on the oneness of the entire human society, nay, of the entire energy of living beings. The need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad Bhagavatam will fulfill this need in human society. It begins, therefore, with an aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya to establish the ideal of a human, of a common cause. So this is the thing. There's so much disunity. I mean, it's incredible. Kali is really active. Kali means literally. Kali means quarrel, age of Kali. So we need a common cause that can unite everyone. And the common cause is the origin of everything, Krishna. Human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the fields of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large. And therefore, there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad Bhagavatam will fulfill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society.
Mm.
there's another paragraph, but for the sake of time, I'll just skip to the end. Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental science, not only for knowing the ultimate source of everything, but also for knowing our relation with Him and our duty toward perfection of the human society on the basis of this perfect knowledge. I am hopeful of its good reception by the thinkers and leaders of society. So yeah, when I think of what the solution is to the world's problems, I think of Srimad Bhagavatam. That people should read it and be guided by it.
The notion that we can distribute books in a virtual sense is there. I know that some people have made some progress. I do wonder whether we are utilizing all of the tools necessary to connect in the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books. And what do you think we should be doing in this regard? Because this COVID thing is clearly going to last for some period of time. But then we have a second thing. It's lasting long enough so that many more people are utilizing online in a general sense, and our lives are actually going to permanently change. I don't know about the word permanent, but they'll be changed. We will spend more time doing face-to-face on Zooms, and we will be spending more time managing our lives and our associations through these mediums. So it seems like we have to revolutionize our style of book distribution, yes?
Yeah, I mean, even in this coronavirus pandemic, ISV is kind of Valley under His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu are distributing more books than ever. It's incredible. So yeah, Vaisheshika Prabhu is certainly a leader, not only in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, but in reading them. And he's devised many programs to encourage devotees to read Srila Prabhupada's books. Such as,
so we should add him to the list too. Huh?
Definitely. And he has the slogan, become a sage page by page. So, yeah, I think we can learn from him how how they do it at ISV, because they've been spectacularly successful even during the lockdown.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end of our time. Maybe you can just give us some of your final words to encourage us to read Srila Prabhupada's books more. Whatever you would like to leave us with as some of your final words.
Well, it might sound like an indirect answer, but Burijan Prabhu often says that the best way to learn something is to teach it. And so if we put ourselves in a position where we are teaching Srila Prabhupada's books or speaking on Srila Prabhupada's books, that will certainly be an impetus to us to study them, to be prepared. And I heard, and I've always taken it as truth, that Srila Prabhupada said that speaking about his books for half an hour is equal to reading his books for 2 hours. So, yeah. So I think that's very important to speak about Srila Prabhupada's books as an impetus to study them and go deeper. And yes, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada speaks about realization. He gives a nice definition of realization, and that is to be able to present the subject, of course, without changing the core principles, but to present a subject in a way that's interesting and appropriate for the audience. So in the process of speaking, we are forced to go deeper in our realization. We can't go
that verse is in full. I don't. How quick would you be able to find that entire quote? Is that something you could find real quickly? Because there's a second part to that. In fact, there's even a third and a fourth. But the second part to that quote is that Srila Prabhupada ends that quote by saying that the ability to do that is, in fact, the definition of realization. In other words, if you are realized sufficiently, you're able to present the spiritual science in a manner that somebody can understand it. I mean, I could try to find that, but I'm wondering if you could find it quicker. And I think letting the audience hear that verse would be a really great way to. It's not a verse, of course. It's a quote. I think it's a purport.
I'll try to find it quickly. Oops.
Yeah. I think that I can also look at the same time, and we'll see who can find it first. Because it is, in fact, I use that verse when I teach marketing to the devotees. I have a little course that I teach marketing.
Oh.
And so I use that verse as part of it. And unfortunately, I am not finding it so quickly. Here we go, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So would you permit me to read it?
Please do.
Okay, so this is Srimad Bhagavatam purport 141. So quite early on in the Bhagavatam. Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya. And at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstance in a suitable manner. No, the original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. And then he ends that this is called realization. So that's that's the full purport I think that you were referring to, yeah?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's very, very important. It's a cornerstone of our marketing, because you could understand that the essence of marketing Krishna consciousness is embedded in his words there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're good. I really appreciate your time. I'm feeling quite honored to be in your presence.
It's a pleasure.
I'd like to come and see you as soon as this COVID thing gets over, but whenever that is, I have no idea. But I want to thank you so much.
It's truly a pleasure, and thank you for organizing this series.
Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
It's to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.